Today we are going to recap an action crime thriller, The Island, that is about an LAPD officer, Mark, who returns to the island where he grew up to seek vengeance of his brother's murder. Hope you will enjoy it. Before we get to the storyline, like and subscribe for more recaps. The movie starts with Nora singing a melodious song at Luna Club, where a drug dealer, Manuel Alvarez, and his girlfriend enjoying her song. When she finishes her song, Manuel appreciates her and asks her to join him for a drink. She feels pleasure and asks for a glass of wine. At this, Manuel asks the bartender, Akeem, to get the fresh French red wine they received yesterday. Akeem goes, and Nora tells Manuel she is from Florida and chasing her dream of becoming a famous singer. Manuel offers her a permanent job at his club to sing exclusively for him. He offers her the wages that are 3 times more than she is making, in Chicago. The offer tempts Nora, and she agrees to sing for him. Later, Akeem returns with a bottle of wine for her. When he is about to present the glass of wine to her, he mistakenly spills it on her dress and apologizes for this. She accepts his apologies, but Manuel gets furious and stabs him for this mistake. Blood gushes out of his throat and he dies at the spot. Nora is terrified, but Manuel asks her to go and clean herself. He further tells her now she will sing for him only. The next scene shows Akeem's dead body lying in the water near the shore. After the opening credits, 2 LAPD undercover agents, Mark and Phil, are seen in Los Angeles. They are going to arrest 2 drug dealers there. They are sitting in a car where Phil tells Mark about his new girlfriend, who has crystal blue eyes, but Mark is not interested in listening to him. A few moments later, the drug dealers reach there and Mark asks Phil to get serious. They come out of their car, and Mark moves towards the drug dealers. One of the dealers gets out of their car and goes to Phil with his gun to see the money, while the other shows drugs to Mark. He opens a bag of drugs and offers it to Mark, who cuts a packet of drug with his knife and tastes it. He likes the quality and asks Phil to hand over the money. But the man puts his gun at Phil and threatens to kill him. He asks Phil to pick up the bag, but he turns back quickly and tries to snatch his gun. He starts to fire immediately, but Phil manages to save himself. On the other side, Mark puts his gun to the other dealer and asks him to surrender. He asks Mark to stop Phil from beating his partner, otherwise they will be shot down, but he doesn't obey him. Then he attacks Mark, who knocks him down easily. After dealing with the drug dealers, Mark receives a call and is told about his brother Akeem's murder on the island. He is shocked to hear this and moves to the island immediately. He attends Akeem's funeral rites, where the priest appreciates his good deeds and prays for his salvation. After the ceremony, they go to Akeem's grave and put flowers on it. Akila comes there and consoles his mother Yvonne, who is in a great pain. She condoles with Mark too and asks him to see her soon. Manuel is also present there and shows his deepest condolences to Yvonne and Mark. He asks Mark to tell him if wants him to do anything for him. Mark thanks him and he goes. Later, Mark and his mother go to their home where she shows him some of Akeem's belongings. They look at his photographs and remember their past. Mark finds a wristwatch there and his mother asks him to take it. He thanks her and wears it. Then, Mark asks his mother about what had happened to Akeem, but she doesn't know anything about it. She tells him things have greatly changed for the last 7 years, when Mark left the island. He tells her mother he will find out the truth, but she tells him not to do so as she doesn't want to lose him. Mark consoles her and asks her to take rest. Then, he goes to the police station and sees Sheriff Nate Wayland, who is his childhood friend. Nate tells him there have been a lot of crimes since he left the island. Then he hands over Akeem's file to Mark and tells him Akeem's murder may be due to some gang war going on here on the island. He further tells Mark it will take time to find out what actually had happened to Akeem. He then tells Mark he will inform him if he gets any update about Akeem's case. Though Mark is not fully convinced, yet he doesn't argue with him and leave the police station. Mark then goes to Akila, who is a martial arts instructor and trains youngsters. They both talk about each other and are pleased to find they are still single, as they didn't marry again after their breakup. She shows her sympathy for Akeem's murder, and Mark tells her there is something wrong with it. Akila agrees with him and reveals that things have significantly changed after Manuel's arrival on the island. He has purchased banks, construction companies, and hotels on the island, and is involved in drug dealing too. He has got control over the entire economy of the island in less than 4 years. He runs several gangs to scare the people on the island. People don't like him, but they have to rely on him to survive. Then, she tells about Akeem, who started a job as a bartender at Luna Club owned by Manuel. Before leaving, Mark tells her he will find out the reality about Manuel, and Akila asks him to be careful, as he is a very dangerous man. He then goes to see Manuel at his club, where his man tries to stop him and asks him to get appointed first. But Manuel asks him to allow him to come. Mark asks him about the reason for his murder, and Manuel says he knows nothing about it. He tells Mark that Akeem had a dispute with a gang that killed him perhaps. He then tells him the name of a club where several gangs come to hang out. He tells him Akeem used to go there after work. He further asks Mark to go to the club and confirm it from the people working there. Then they talk about the changes taking place on the island. Mark asks Manuel to move off his business from the island, and Manuel tells him he has done his homework on Mark. He also tells him about his strong relations all over America, but tells Manuel he also has done his homework on him, and the time is going to be very bad for him soon. When Mark leaves, Manuel asks his man to get gangsters from the north to kill him. Mark sees one of his old friends in the street and asks him about the package he had handed over to him to bury at a safe place. The old man told him he buried it safely. Then Mark goes to that place and digs it. He takes out a box that is full of guns. At night, Mark goes to the club told by Manuel where gangsters come to drink. When he reaches there, he finds several gangsters enjoying music. Mark turns off the music and tells them he doesn't want to harm anyone. He just wants to get some information about Akeem's death. He asks them to tell him what had actually happened to his brother. But their leader threatens him to go away, or he will be shot. Mark snatches his gun and asks them to tell him about Akeem. Seeing this, they attack him and attempt to kill him, but Mark fights back and knocks them down one by one. At the same time, some other goons reach there and start to fire at Mark. But he manages to escape in time. They keep on chasing him on their motorbikes but can't get him. When they lose him, they talk to their boss who orders them to go to Mark's mother and kill her. So they reach his house and enter it. There is complete darkness in the home as if nobody lives there. They try to find his mother in torchlights, but she is seen nowhere. They reach her bedroom and find her sleeping in her bed. They start to fire at her, but later find nothing except some pillows. They get disappointed at this and come out of the room. One of the gangsters finds a photograph lying on the shelf. He takes it out of its frame and keeps it in his pocket. The next scene shows Mark's mother at Akila's home. She is safe and talking to Akila, who consoles his mother. Yvonne tells her they are in some pain as Akila lost her son 7 years ago. Mark reaches there and asks about the first aid kit. Akila goes to bring it. Meanwhile, Nate and his team reach the club where Mark fought with the gangsters. They find the corpse of the bartender there. At the same time, an officer comes and tells Nate about the murder attempt on Mark's mother. Nate goes there and sees the pillows hit by the bullets. Mark joins him too and asks him to help him find Akeem's killer. Nate shows his concern over this, and Mark tells him he will end all the mafia life on the island. Nate then asks Mark to go to Nora, who joined the Luna Club the same day Akeem was murdered. She may know something about it and give him some clues. Meanwhile, Manuel is depressed about the failed attempt on Mark and his mother. He inquires about the cause of failure. They told him they lost Mark while chasing him, and his house was empty when they went there to kill his mother. Manuel gets furious at them and asks his man to kill them one by one. His man obeys the order that kills 2 of them. When Manuel is about to kill the 3rd one, he shows him the photo he got from Mark's home. Manuel sees the photo where Mark is standing with Akila at a beach. After this, he shoots the 3rd one too. The following day, Mark goes to Nora's home and tells her about him. She is too frightened to open the door. Mark shows her service badge and she opens the door then. He gets inside and asks her about Akeem's murder. He tells her if she reveals what had happened to Akeem, he will get her off the island. She starts to weep and tells him he was brutally murdered by Manuel. She feels sorry for this and begs Mark to get her out of the island. Mark consoles and assures her he will send her to her home soon. Meanwhile, a new gang reaches the island to kill Mark, who takes Nora to Nate. He asks Nate to send Nora out of the island in any way. Nate agrees to it and takes her with him. Mark returns to his home and tells his mother about Nora's statement. Listening to this, she starts to weep and Mark consoles her. Meanwhile, the new gang starts its operation to find and kill Mark. Nate takes Nora to a boat and gives her a ticket. He asks his man to take her to the airport so that she may go to her home. Nora thanks him and leaves in the boat. On the other side, Mark reaches Akila's home and sees her mother, who lives there. Suddenly, Manuel's men reach there to kill Mark. He takes his guns and gives one of them to Akila. He asks her to leave from the back door with his mother. They leave the house and get into the woods. The gangsters start to fire at them, but Mark fights back and shoots one of them. Nate also reaches there and tries to shoot them all, but they manage to escape. Nate then calls Mark, who tells him he is safe, and asks him to see after a few hours. When Manuel learns about Nora's escape, he gets furious at his manager and kills him mercilessly. At the police station, Nate finds more evidence about Manuel's illegal business and saves the information on his personal computer. He then calls to Phil and asks about Nora. He tells him she is safe and sound. They talk about the mafia people operating on the island. Phil asks him to keep him updated about the happenings on the island. Mark reaches his friend's home with Akila and his mother. His friend greets them happily. He feels pleasure in keeping Mark's mother and Akila at his home. Mark thanks him and leaves his mother there. He asks Aquila to live there too, but she tells him she wants to help him. So she goes with him. Nate reaches the church and sees the priest, whom he gives an envelope. He asks the priest if anything happens to him, and then hands it over to Mark. The priest cannot understand it. However, he takes the envelope and Nate leaves the church. On the other hand, Manuel is enraged at Nora's escape and tells Lisa he can't leave the island because he is a wanted mafia drug dealer. He is afraid of being captured by the international police that may reach there to arrest him any time. Lisa is greatly depressed due to all these happenings. He then asks his man to kill Mark immediately. His man takes his order and leaves. At night, Mark and Aquila wait for Nate at a lonely place. They talk about their dead child, and Aquila starts to weep while remembering it. Mark asks her not to think about it and consoles her. She tells him she doesn't want to lose him again. Mark ensures her she won't lose him now. Then a car reaches there and Mark goes toward it. He finds Nate badly wounded in his car. Nate tells him about Manuel's men who shot him and now are chasing him. A few moments later, they reach there and start to fire at Mark and Aquila. Mark responds in time and fires back at them, but they remain unharmed. Aquila also fights with them, but is sedated by a man who takes her with them. Mark returns to the car where Nate is about to die. They talk about Akeem and their childhood memories. Mark thanks him for his help before Nate dies. Mark reaches the church and tells the people about Manuel's dirty business and Nate's murder. The people present there are shocked to know this. He asks them to help him get rid of Manuel. When they have left, the priest hands him over the envelope Nate gave to him before his death. Mark thanks him and leaves the church. The next scene presents Lisa and Manuel, who have captured Aquila in an abandoned building. He tells Aquila about Mark, who has put his life in danger. Lisa continues to torture Aquila, who tells him Mark is a brave man who will reach here to kill them. At the police station, Mark tells the staff he has taken over as acting chief of police to replace Nate, who sacrificed his life for the island. He tells them he will not spare his killers. Then he turns on Nate's personal computer and learns about John's illegal financial transactions and foreign money laundering. After some time, two children reach there and tell him about an abandoned hotel where they saw Manuel's right-hand man. Mark appreciates them and asks them to stay away from them so that they may not harm them. When they children have gone, Phil reaches there and tells him he wants to help him. Mark is surprised to see him there. Phil tells him he has been helping Nate against the mafia people, so Mark agrees to take his help. Later, Manuel calls Mark and asks him to see him the following day at 7:00 a.m. He asks him to come alone and unarmed. He further asks him to bring Nora, and he will bring Aquila. Mark agrees to see him and calls Phil. He asks him to prepare a team and reach there in time. The next day, Mark goes to see Manuel while Phil goes to find Aquila with his team. Manuel reaches the old sugar factory and asks Mark to tell him Nora's address, but Mark asks him to present Aquila first. Manuel doesn't agree with this and threatens to kill Aquila if Mark doesn't obey him. Mark then calls Nora while Phil finds Aquila, but Lisa starts to fire his men. One of the officers is killed in the exchange of firing. Phil pretends to surrender but suddenly shoots Lisa. He then unchains Aquila while another man attacks him, but Aquila fights with him and knocks him down. Phil shoots him later. After killing all the gangsters, Phil then calls Mark and tells him Aquila is safe. At this, Mark tells Manuel about Nora, who has left the island. Listening to this, Manuel calls and orders his men to kill Aquila, but he gets no answer. Then Mark tells him all his men are dead now. He then kills Manuel's right-hand man too. Seeing this, Manuel takes out his knife and tries to stab Mark, who fights back and kills Manuel with his own knife. In this way, he takes revenge for his brother's murder. In the final scene, we see Mark and Aquila sitting at a beach, where he returns her wedding ring and promises not to leave the island again. Here the movie ends. Okay, that's the entire recap for the island. Hope you have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.